Greetings! This is a video about POR-15. POR stands for Paint Over Rust. I don't know what the 15 stands for. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts about it, my takeaways, and then we'll get into the actual process, what was involved in me using it in a specific application. POR-15 has been around for a long time. It's got a good reputation. I did a little bit of testing after I put it down, and it appears to be a very good, durable product. It is impacted by ultraviolet radiation, so if it's a place that will be exposed to UV, I would recommend putting something over the top of it. They recommend that as well. I did a test and painted it and just left it outside for a week or so. And before very long, you could see that the really high gloss that it has after initially laying it down and it drying went away quite quickly when it was exposed to the sunlight. And that did not happen to the paint that I put down under the engine compartment. The application process is pretty long and involved. It's not exactly hard. There's just a lot of steps. I think that's what it takes to really get the full utility out of the coating. Also, especially like on the painting side where you need 2 to 6 hours between coats, you may want to set a whole day aside to do the painting. It's not cheap, but at this point it looks like you get what you pay for. Time will tell, but as I said, I've done some testing and it seems to be really durable, really good at holding up against abrasion, seems to stick to what you paint it to quite well if it's prepared correctly. And overall, I have a favorable impression of it. Like I said, time intensive, expensive, but if what you need is something that's going to last, it appears to be the business. So let's get into the process of actually getting the product down.
I bought this, nobody's paying me, to deal with the rust and corrosion that I'm finding around the battery tray. So I'm going to open this up and see what we got. All right, they give us a foam brush thing, chip brush, some gloves. That's good. I don't have any gloves. Metal prep, the paint, gloss black, which is going to match great with the red, and the cleaner degreaser. Actually, before I get going too much in this, I want to say sometimes I think folks try to make out like they're some sort of expert when they've actually never done something before. And I have not used this stuff before, so we're going to find out how it works to just follow the directions. So what I'm curious about now is what the paint needs if it's going over paint. To coat rusted or bare metal surfaces, remove grease, oil, and other foreign substances using the water-based cleaner, which is this stuff. Stir thoroughly, then dispense a quantity into a separate container to avoid contamination. All right. Application, apply thin coats. Always apply a minimum of 2 coats if necessary. You may be recoated or top coated when dry to the touch with a slight finger drag, typically 2 to 6 hours. To coat over cured rust preventative coating, scuff the surface with 620 grit sandpaper until gloss is dull, and then apply coating. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to scuff the paint that's there with some 320. And cleanup must be done, blah, blah, blah. For skin protection, don't get on your skin, don't get in your eyes. Don't breathe it. Probably don't want to breathe the fumes. Apparently moisture tends to cause it to cure. That's interesting. Okay, so that's this piece. I'll need to scuff the paint before I'm done. Metal prep, this is the next step. Remove loose or flaking rust, paint, scale, etc. Surface to be treated should be free of grease and oil and other foreign substances. Use the cleaner degreaser. Metal prep works faster at temperatures above 70 degrees. Apply with brush, rollers, spray, or dip rusted metal directly into solution. To remove rust, keep surfaces wet with metal prep for a minimum of 30 minutes. If bubbles appear, smooth them out with a sponge, cloth, or brush. Heavily rusted surfaces will require more time. Inspect parts every 30 minutes on bare or rusted metal surfaces. Keep metal wet for 10 or 20 minutes, so that'll be fun. Then rinse thoroughly with water. Remove excess from paint or chrome surfaces as quickly as possible to avoid discoloration. Surface must be bone dry prior to applying the POR paint. All right, and then this stuff, what do they say? Directions. Should always be diluted with water, 4 parts water to 1 part cleaner. Works well for most jobs, may be diluted more, but I don't think they want more for this. After using degreaser, rinse job thoroughly with water. Metal surfaces cleaned with cleaner degreaser should always be treated with metal prep before painting. Well, it looks like we're doing all the stuff they want us to do. So I guess first step is to get that area thoroughly degreased. Then hang around for 10 or 20 minutes, keeping the whole area wet with this stuff. Then finally, when it's bone dry, I will apply the POR-15. POR-15 has generally an outstanding reputation for being a very strong, durable coating that kind of prevents rust, I think primarily by just not letting oxygen get to whatever rust is there and allowing it to continue. I don't know whether this is what they would use like in the Smithsonian to prevent rust, you know, where they're trying to preserve something forever and ever. But this is a truck, and while I definitely want to preserve it, I think this is the best I'll be able to do. All right, let's get to degreasing. I'm planning ahead here, and I'm noticing that as I'm moving this around, water's coming, and after I soda blasted this, I hosed it all down with water. That's the neat thing about soda, is that water dissolves it and carries it away, so you don't have any grit. It's also a fairly soft abrasive medium, so you don't really have, with thick metal like this, you don't have to worry about burning through the way you do with sandblasting. And even though I really like the finish that I get, for before painting with glass beads, when you're done, it's a bunch of glass beads everywhere. And in a engine compartment like this, I just didn't want to deal with trying to clean that up or contain the glass beads. So I went with soda. I'm going to get right to the degreasing. Okay, we've got this, what seems to me to be pretty well degreased. That looks a little interesting there. Water's not sticking to some different spots, so I'm going to give that a little bit of attention. But we'll see what it does when I'm done sanding it, because I want to scuff all the paint around here that I'm going to paint with the 320. And I like using wet dry. It tends to hold up better, wet or dry. So often it's helpful to sand wet or sand with oil or something like that. And the garnet papers are fine for wood, but for this stuff, they just tend to not hold up. Also, the backing paper just tends to be tougher. I think that's so that it can tolerate getting wet. A trick that my dad showed me is, and he showed it a little bit different, but this is close enough. If you want to use all this, like you want to sand it like this, but then you sand it over like that, and you've got two abrasive surfaces rubbing on each other. And I don't think my dad came up with this, but he said that painters, he probably learned it from a painter then, will fold it like this, so that then I can use up this piece and then flip over to this piece and then flip it around. Oh, anyways, flip it around and continue. So let's get sanding. I may have done a little overkill as underrated. On the other hand, I might not have. I really try to pay attention to any place where I'd want the paint to adhere. And now, since it says that the metal prep works better when it's warm, I'm going to heat this up too. The added benefit of drying out any moisture that's in there. Not that
that would necessarily cause a problem, but my thinking is that the drier it is in there, the more it's going to tend to suck in and not dilute the metal prep into any place. Yeah, gonna hit this with a heat gun, dry it off, and then keep it wet for 20 or 30 minutes. It is paint time, which is always the funnest part. Well, almost always. Sometimes a paint job really goes rough. I'm curious how this goes. Actually, I'm going to reread these instructions again. Preparation, I did all that. Application, apply in thin coats. Always apply a minimum of 2 coats. Typically 2 to 6 hours. That's one problem with doing this the way they say to do it. It takes a lot of time. That is interesting. Okay, well, we're going to dive in. I should be able to get at least 2 coats in if I hustle. Going to use a mixing cup for pouring a little bit of the paint in. Before we get going, well, these guys. Let's see. I cut it, and I cut it on a bit of an angle so that I could scrape the bottom. It says stir well, so we're gonna do that. Doesn't feel like there's anything much on the bottom. Just scrape my way around. Okay, it says don't apply if the humidity is above 70, and I got a reading of just under 55. Not sure how accurate my humidity measuring thing is, but I don't think it's off by 15 points. Oh, there is some gunk on the bottom. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, shoot. I forgot. I got a mask.
Okay.
All right, let's mask it. Okay, I got the brush. I got a little bit of paint in the can, and I've got some other brushes just in case. Just in case. It's looking pretty good. It really tends to go on thick. I'm a little concerned. You can see that. Let's see. Maybe you can see that better. See that red poking through? So I'm going to hit with a second coat, and you see red poking through over there. I really gave those a scrub with the degreaser and the sanding and all that stuff. So it's not holding real well. So we'll see. I didn't try painting underneath because I didn't see the point. The paint looks all right. All right, now I get to wait a couple hours and see what's what. I also painted something over here so I'd have a place for me to get a sense of how the paint's coming without messing with it. So I can touch this, peel it if I wanted to. I could have run down some tape and then some masking tape and paint it over to see what it does when I peel it back at various points. This is not a cosmetic piece. I mean, I want it to look nice, but it's not like on the outside of the car. This is all function to prevent, figured I'd keep talking about it over here. This is all functional to prevent battery acid and stuff that spills around here from getting into the metal and causing corrosion. So we'll be back here in a couple hours. It's the next day. I was not able to get back to this in 2 to 6 hours as specified, and this is dried on hard. It's I think I'm starting to understand why folks make such a big deal out of this. If I can just get this to cover well, I don't know if you can see those spots, they got a little bit bigger. I'm going to go over this again with 320. I'm going to try, I'm not a paint guy, I'm going to try sanding up kind of to the masking tape. I'm curious how, well, it looks like it'll peel off all right. And I'm not sure how clean underneath it really is. But again, it's a truck, it doesn't matter. I do have a concern that that I won't be able to sand up to the edge and that the edge will flake. That being said, I would think that once it gets to where I did scuff it, the chipping, whatever might happen, should stop. So far, it appears to be a very flexible coating. Like I said, really hard. So I'm really bummed that I wasn't able to get back to it, because I'm going to scuff through here, but this is really uneven in here, and so it's going to adhere real well on the tops, but not so well on the bottom. It just would have been nice to really get a good, complete do on it. That's the plan. I'm going to scuff this up, hit it again with the degreaser, rinse it off, and paint it again. And where it had a nice underneath, it laid down real nice and glossy. My assessment so far on this is, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, so we'll see how well this holds up. But if it holds up as well as it looks like it will, and as well as people say it will, then all this prep time is simply part of the price of the ticket to get a really good, durable coating in a hard-use, hard-wear, hostile environment like under a battery in a truck. So, I'm going to get sanding. Well, that took a lot longer than I had hoped, but actually as I got into it, not as long as I might have thought. Okay, I've scuffed this up pretty good. I think I should have rinsed more while I was doing it. The problem is that when it's wet, it's hard to see where it's scuffed, and then I got to dry it off. And at this point, it just needs to get painted. My concern has been to do this as correctly as possible, because this is a high wear area that already has some rust going, as you can see here. The plan now, since it took up the time I had available to work on this, is to I've scuffed it. I hit it with a degreaser, as you saw. I've rinsed it off, and I'm wondering if some of these dots didn't come from using compressed air. Compressed air should be dry, but practically speaking, it needs to go through something. You need to go through a dryer and a filter to not get gunk in there, and that may have been from compressed air. So I have very carefully degreased it, rinsed it off, and now I'm going to just leave it to dry, and we'll see how it holds. We're back at the battery tray area. I don't know, it's been about a week or so since I put all the coats on. I am pretty impressed with at least the initial appearing durability of this. I tested a wire brush on another piece, and so I'm going to do it here to see how it works when there's some thickness here. Now, this is not a stunt. I'm not trying to imply that POR-15 is something that it isn't. This is an honest test. I've tested it, like I said, on single layers, but I've not tested it on any thickness, and that may really change things. So I may be really unhappy with what happens here. Now I'm going to do this in a way so that there shouldn't be any question as to what it is that I'm doing. So I don't have a brand new brush, but I have a not too terribly used brush. The bristles are sticking out. They're pretty close together. There's a bunch of them. For those who want to know, this is, I don't know, a Weiler 44075 stainless brush. I've been using these since the, since 1996, 97. I'm using these, wow, that's actually kind of a long time. Anyways, they normally have more of a bend to them here, but I heated this up and made it flat because I needed a brush with a straight handle to get the job done. I love these brushes. They're not like the most aggressive thing in the world, but when you want a wire brush that's going to get something done, I've always found these to do a good job. I'm sure there are plenty of others that do a great job too. It looks like this is a good area for us to see the impact. Now, what it's done before is it clouds it over and sort of scuffs it, but it doesn't actually penetrate through the paint. It doesn't really scratch the paint. It just sort of like we'll see. So I'm going to start. So here I am. This is here we go. So no cuts or anything like that. Here's the brush in frame, and now I'm going to I'm pushing harder and harder. Oh wow, I'm pushing really hard. Now, let's see, can you see? You can't really see that it's not, that it's a little cloudy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna dismount the camera and see if I can get a good view of the scratches, because I just scrubbed this really hard with my stainless steel brush, and while the paint isn't as pretty as it is over here, it is fine. So let's see. All right, move the camera. All right, there we go. You see that? So there are some like scratches and stuff. It's not real pretty like it is right here. It's all nice and glossy, but here I'll do it again, and this is I try to have like steady shots, but right here you see it makes scratches, so it's not nice and shiny. But let's see if we can get a good, it just doesn't matter. Like, in fact, if you really work it over, it kind of, as you can see. Anyways, so I am pretty pleased with this. I am hopeful that this will stand up very well to abrasion. I don't really know what to say except for that, you know, it's not shiny, but the paint is entirely serviceable. I've done nothing that I can tell to damage the usability of this surface to protect it from the abrasion, from the moisture, from battery acid that this area is likely to encounter. This is a short-term durability test. I don't know what it's like over time. Like they say, keep it away from UV. Well, it shouldn't have a lot of UV in here. So far, this is doing well. Maybe in the next year or two, I'll be able to update this video or come out with another video, and we can pull the battery out and see how this is holding up.
I hope you found this useful, helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. What do they say? Like, share, subscribe. Do leave me comments with any concerns or questions you have. New information, other products that are awesome. Like I said, I'm not getting paid by POR-15 to make this video. So if there's other cool stuff out there, please let me know. That's what I got for you. Until next time, have fun doing stuff.